power that will travel on these proposed lines is not for Virginians. It is power for those in Maryland and points further north and east. Second, as I predicted in August 2009, when actual demand and consumption figures were applied to the 2009 PJM RTEP projections did not hold up. I'll repeat that. The projections did not hold up. Since then, PJM has stated that while sensitivity analysis of their modeling, quote, suggested that the PATH project appeared not to be needed in 2014 as a result of changing modeling assumption, unquote, additional analysis indicated that, quote, significant voltage and thermal violations of reliability criteria persist, requiring additional transmission capability to be put in place at the latest by June 1, 2015, unquote. Ironically, this is the same date that PJM expects Virginia Power to complete its rebuild of its Mount Storm Dobbs 500 kilovolt transmission line rebuild, returning that line to full service with a 66% increase in the line's capacity. Keep in mind that this rebuild by Virginia Power will include at least one planned outage of the current Mount Storm Dobbs 500 kilovolt transmission line. If PATH were really so necessary, wouldn't the reliability problems occur while Virginia Power has its parallel lines down for replacement and not after they are returned to service with a 66% increase in capacity? I ask you to think about that, sir.
In this one routing link, past 10.5 miles of industrial transmission lines become the dominant structure draping over all three northern entrances to Loudoun County. Harpers Ferry Road, Bourbon Turnpike, and Maryland Route 15 are historic roads and compose all three Loudoun's northern tourist gateways. There's no stretch of the imagination that can conclude that Loudoun's agritourism strategy will be enhanced. Across the nation, localities require design simulation and the siting of monopoles, yet this far more impactful application requires none. To date, Allegheny has not offered accurate visual simulations of its visual impacts, just typical pole pictures. First, I urge you to direct Allegheny to present accurate visual simulations, the views that tourists will have as they drive into the area, the views that citizens will look at every day. Allegheny needs to prove there's no tourism harm. Second, and most importantly, this application provides no remedies for the extraneous cost to Loudoun's collective rural economy. Public and private direct investment in Loudoun's rural economy are real. I urge you to hold Allegheny accountable for its fiscal and cultural impact to Loudoun County.
Question the need for this power line because I'm sure you and your consultants are capable of making that determination. I am not going to question why the application is causing problems not only in Virginia, but in West Virginia and Maryland as well, because I'm sure that will be determined also. I am not going to question the next step for Allegheny with regards to the construction of the substation in Dobbs in Frederick County, Maryland, being the size of the Pentagon, because I'm sure that will be determined by the consultants also. I am not going to question why a coal-fired plant is more harmful to the environment than a gas-fired plant. That will be determined also. I'm not going to question the relocation of parts of this line being constructed underground and or put in a pipeline to run on top of the ground, because perhaps that will be considered someday also. Even though I had suggested the pipeline version several times before, the National Park Service officials and the National Forest representatives did not know that it had ever been mentioned as an alternative. I am distributing a copy of the resolution that was adopted by the Lovettsville Town Council in February of 2009. We continue to be opposed to the alternative route, which would bring the power line loop close to the town boundary. We would hope that Allegheny Power will pursue their original plan of 2008 by constructing in their existing easement, and only if they are able to show just cause that this new transmission line is needed and that the environmental impact will not affect our population.
Unfortunately, FERC has neither monitored nor enforced PATH's educational requirements. Last year, having withdrawn its first Virginia SCC application, PATH applied for permits to cross federal park and forest and navigable waters, without which PATH cannot be built. Now the National Park Service, in cooperation with the Forest Service and the Corps of Engineers, prepares an environmental impact statement on these applications. Under CEQ's regulations and court rulings and common sense, this EIS must consider all significant impacts on the quality of the human environment, and that PATH would cause these effects with the grant of these permits. But the NPS has proposed avoiding that need by examining only the impacts of the proposed park and river crossings and all the routing alternatives. We shall see whether the EIS, whether this is an EIS dodge that succeeds, and whether this time the Council on Environmental Quality will require the Park Service to meet its NEPA obligations as FERC did not. If CEQ fails to do so, and if the NPS insists on its cramped, illegal reading of the law, I should not be surprised if a successful NEPA lawsuit were to follow. Now, with PATH proceedings in 3 states, we confront the question of whether once again we shall see further governmental failure to protect the public economic and human environmental interests. Each state inclines to inquiry confined to its own state boundaries and parochial concerns. Will any look at PATH as a whole, at all its impacts, at all its costs, and all its reasonable alternatives? We in Virginia must believe that the SCC's in the SCC's integrity and its capacity and willingness to evaluate PATH under your statute as you weigh the privilege that PATH seeks from you. The PATH's application has no basis in public convenience or necessity. Cold reason and facts show how PATH contradicts the public interest that you must weigh. Scores of respondents and an extraordinary display of expertise have mobilized that contradict PATH's claims. Your mandate to consider PATH's impact on the environment can and should rectify the shoddy analysis and the decision-making of government agencies up until now. Your duty to Virginians and to the citizens of our neighboring states requires exercise of a broad inquiry and enlightened decision-making that will allow future historians to say, energy, sanity, and wisdom prevailed in Virginia.
I'm in support of the building of the PATH project. This project will provide much-needed jobs in Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. Not only will this project create jobs, it will also improve the local economies. For example, hotels, restaurants, gas stations, and construction business will see increased revenues due to the construction. It is in my opinion that the PATH project will help Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland economies and the national economy, and as well improve the national power grid.